Envy. For a game that's at least somewhat about amassing collections of attractive anime characters, Envy is a feeling on surprisingly limited display in the Genshin community. C2 Raiden? That's cool. C6 Albedo? King shit. You swiped for every C6 R5 character since release? Thanks for keeping the servers alive, whale god. Envy. There's just not much of it until you start to compare one game with another. Honkai Star Rail's release was enough to make many Genshin players take to Reddit with rage in their envy. After years of dedication to Genshin, Star Rail released with a bunch of stuff that Genshin players had been asking for years. Here's a small list. Replayable events, permanent events, a multi-layered map, a bigger stamina cap plus stamina overflow, double drop rate events for artifacts, salvageable artifact experience, a more useful artifact strongbox, a photo mode that doesn't default to showing your UID, a first-person camera that doesn't require a specific non-standard 4-star to use, lip-synced characters and dialogue for languages other than Chinese. MC type changes don't require a trip to the Statue of Seven, resetting in Memory of Chaos doesn't force you to replay both sides, and I'm sure there's some I've missed. And of course, Star Rail launched with a big game mode. Simulated Universe, an interesting, variable, repeatable endgame mode with good rewards. It's something that Genshin Impact players have wanted for years. The lack of an endgame mode beyond the Spiral Abyss was in fact a source of a huge controversy in October 2022.
Are there any plans to release new permanent endgame content in the same vein as Spiral Abyss? And Hoyoverse's answer was basically a big fat no.
For all the players that are either at endgame or just enjoy combat or are trying to get to that level, this is a big slap in the face to them.
The game has essentially been killed for me. Like, I feel like my favorite game just got murdered.
If you're looking forward to endgame coming, it is not. So, sure hope you like card games.
Except, Genshin Impact did have its simulated universe. For one patch only, we had a repeatable roguelike game mode, where we could clear challenging combat chambers, buff up our party, and face down a strong boss at the end. Well-built teams and skill required. This is the story of Labyrinth Warriors, Genshin Impact's alternative endgame that never was. Labyrinth Warriors was the flagship event for Genshin Impact Patch 2.2, a roguelike dungeon crawling event set in the Mystic Onmyo Chamber, a mysterious domain in Inazuma. Throughout the event, you had to explore the shifting Mystic Onmyo Chamber multiple times, each with a different layout to explore and different sets of enemies to defeat. At the beginning of your run, you would select up to 3 Shikifuda. These were special active abilities you could activate a limited number of times throughout your run to increase your damage, healing, resistance interruption, or set up unique elemental and team interactions. Plunge Hu Tao, anybody? You explored 2 floors of the labyrinth in each run, traversing room to room with just a simple map to help you find your way. While it didn't take long to make it from one room to another, there were traps to avoid, treasures to be found, and twists and turns in the corridors to keep the exploration engaging. Treasure chests didn't contain primogems, but they had Mora, artifact fodder, and that dopamine hit Genshin players have grown addicted to. There were also investigation points containing energy, cabbages, and damaged replicas, an event-exclusive currency you could spend on upgrades to make each run easier over time. Those traps I mentioned, you really wanted to avoid those. They could ruin your run if you weren't paying attention by simply exploding and killing your active character, increasing the damage of all enemies, or even preventing your characters from being healed or revived. Most rooms of the domain contained timed combat challenges. After winning a battle, you could pick one of 3 charms, that is, buffs, for your party. In a really nice bit of difficulty tuning, each combat challenge let the player choose between a serious encounter or a dire encounter. Choosing the more difficult dire encounter gave you more powerful buffs to choose from. Over time, your party would slowly become more powerful, better equipping you for the boss rooms at the end of the labyrinth's 2 floors. These boss encounters either featured elite enemies with attendants, support mobs that provide buffs and healing to their boss, or they featured powered-up versions of Genshin's overworld bosses. These were challenging encounters that, at the highest difficulty, required well-built endgame teams with strong buffs to defeat. Wait a second. A roguelike dungeon mode, where you fight battles to earn buffs, power up your team over time, and fight a challenging boss at the end? That's right, it's the simulated universe. Or Elysian Realm. I have played Honkai Impact, okay? Anyways, all of this was a massive breath of fresh air when compared to the sad state of the Spiral Abyss, which players were complaining about even back in fall 2021 when Labyrinth Warriors was in the game. Spiral Abyss has never been an especially beloved part of Genshin Impact. Even combat-oriented and hardcore players seem to find it lacking at best, without much meat on the content bone. Too frustrating at worst, when the Abyss just refuses to give you that one attack buff you need to one-cycle Copelia. But I have another theory as to why players seem to find it so unsatisfying. The presentation of the Spiral Abyss is just not up to par with the rest of the game. Presentation is one of Genshin's strongest suits. The game is a visual feast, with a huge variety of beautiful landscapes and vibrant characters. There are so many stunning visual reveals where it feels like you've fallen into the game's concept art. And don't forget the great voice acting and entertaining cutscenes, whether they were rendered in-engine or animated in Genshin's stunning stained glass 2D style. And then you have the Spiral Abyss in comparison. It's at a tacked-on location that you first get to via an unexplained wormhole. As far as I remember, the Spiral Abyss itself is never mentioned in the game's story or lore except for its own. Inside the Abyss itself, it's just a series of nondescript, almost featureless flat chambers. There are staircases that imply you might be moving up or down the abyssal spire, but the game fades to black the nanosecond you clear a chamber. Move on to the next floor via a menu, or at best a pop-up. Rewards are distributed via menus too, instead of a contextualized treasure chest. Even the music is uninspiring in comparison to the rest of Genshin. There's a reason speedrunners pick their own, more exciting songs to go with their high-level gameplay videos. We're supposedly exploring a large and dangerous tower and seizing its treasures. Instead, it feels like we're partaking in several inconsequential battles in a bubble universe. I know this seems like a bunch of small stuff, but presentation goes a long way in heightening a player's enjoyment of a gameplay experience. Ideally, Spiral Abyss would be a game mode that everybody wants to play because it's inherently fun, not just because it provides significant amounts of ever-scarce primogems. As it is, the Spiral Abyss is left feeling half-baked, which makes it stand out poorly in comparison to the meticulous craftsmanship that's gone into the rest of Genshin, DS Kit notwithstanding. I do realize that, for pure combat players, the speed offered by fade to black and menu transitions might be a plus, but the overworld is so easy for even pretty casual late-game players that we're left in this mixed situation where Spiral Abyss is frustrating and boring, while the overworld combat is too easy and boring. The Spiral Abyss lacks the good presentation needed to make it more interesting and fun to attract the more casual players, while failing to provide enough content for hardcore players to sink their teeth into. It's the worst of all worlds. That casual player base is likely the core reason that Genshin Impact hasn't added any more challenging endgame content. Genshin Impact has over 60 million active monthly players. It is one of the single largest video games in the entire world. While we can only guess as to the makeup of the player base's true habits, Hoyo does know the real answer. And it is safe to assume that Hoyoverse is an extremely data-driven company. They wouldn't be sending us so many elaborate surveys if they weren't. That said, we can make some guesses based on Hoyo's behavior and some social media statistics. YouTube videos, even on relatively casual-oriented content like guides, tend to earn the biggest creators a few 100,000 views at most. Spiral Abyss-oriented content tends to perform less well than that. The ultimate point here is that, from what we can see, less than 10% of the player base is consuming this video content. Of course, this is the English-only content, and the game is much bigger in China and some other foreign markets, so maybe 20 to 30% of players are watching video content in total. But if less than 1/3 of the population are even looking at video guides to build their characters, and less than that are looking at Abyss content, how many are actually clearing the Spiral Abyss? My guess is, not many. I'd assert it's probable that only a minority of players 36-star the Spiral Abyss. Hoyo's behavior of de-emphasizing the Abyss and hard content in general is likely due to poor interest in that type of content. Remember, the specific reason they gave in their 2022 interview that ignited the controversy was this: if we create another type of permanent endgame that is similar to Spiral Abyss, it might end up creating excessive anxiety for our players. Not everyone is interested in Musk Reef. Apparently, the anxiety caused by releasing a new Archon with limited Ascension materials, forcing us to raid each other's worlds if we didn't want to wait 2 weeks to max her, was acceptable anxiety. Anyways, I think this is a bad reason to give up on endgame content. Instead, Hoyo should have developed an endgame mode that casual players will want to play, and that hardcore players will still enjoy. Hint, it's the simulated universe. The simulated universe is obviously designed to be played by all HSR players, casuals and hardcore alike. We can infer this from many parts of its design, but most importantly, that it's the only source of planar relics, which you must put on your characters to even have a casual build. Additionally, it's a renewable source of warp tickets, good, free-to-play friendly light cones, and most importantly, stellar jades. And these rewards are 100% achievable for even the casual player who doesn't have the skill or characters built well enough to successfully clear a run every time. The points are cumulative, so they just have to attempt an extra run or two to get the max rewards. This is in stark contrast to Memory of Chaos or Spiral Abyss, which is a strict DPS check. You must have the skill and gear required to full clear, or you will miss out on the very valuable pulling currency. Furthermore, the roguelike nature of the simulated universe, with plentiful buffs and curios available to power up your team, de-emphasizes the gear check element of the Abyss game modes. Instead, the game mode is more about picking the right buffs for your team and the situation. The buffs are way more powerful and impactful than the relics on your characters. This again makes it more accessible to casual players who might not have or even know how to create the optimized builds needed to comfortably clear MOC. Strong gear will make it a lot easier, maybe even trivial for hardcore players, but at least the variety of paths in the simulated universe provide good opportunities for replay through experimentation, should a hardcore player get bored of insta-killing everything. Most importantly, the simulated universe has good presentation. Instead of being dropped into a featureless chamber with no context, we revisit corridors of worlds we've experienced. Enemies and the music are usually contextualized to the area we're simulating, which makes it a lot more visually and aurally interesting than what Spiral Abyss has to offer. One of the first updates Hoyo made to the simulated universe in the live game was to improve a facet of its presentation. Remember these weird little spheres that were used for simulated universe events at launch? They were quite bland. The choice to remove these spheres and instead drop a painting with the event's relevant artwork into the world was a great idea. The appearance of one of those paintings is eye-catching and gets a reaction from you before you get there. It's pretty hype to enter an occurrence area to see Ronmei's painting floating there. Lastly, and most relevant to Genshin, is that the simulated universe features an aspect of traversal, however basic it may be. While there isn't much need to explore, the need for forward movement with enemies in the way and destructible objects to interact with helps you feel a distinct sense of progress as you literally progress forward through the simulated universe. Traversal and exploration are two of the most important gameplay elements of Genshin Impact, and they are both completely missing from its endgame. But they are represented, however lightly, in Star Rail's simulated universe. The lavish open world is obviously where a lot of dev time and money is going. And it works. Exploration in Genshin Impact is a ton of fun. For me, opening chests is as rewarding and addicting 3 years later as it was at the start of the game. It's this open world gameplay loop that likely keeps a lot of Genshin's casual player base hooked. Open worlds are just insanely popular in the gaming market, and Hoyo keeps giving us more incredible open world content to enjoy. So ideally, an endgame mode that appeals to both casuals and hardcore players would tie the game's exploration and combat gameplay together. And guess what? There's already content that does that super well in the game. It's these challenge domains that are scattered throughout the overworld. These standalone dungeons provide Genshin's exploration experience on a miniaturized scale, while also providing frequent and fun combat. These have sadly gotten rarer and less complex as time has gone on. There are 0 of them in Fontaine, and several of the ones in Sumeru consisted of simple, one-room combat challenges. But when they're done well, they provide really awesome experiences. And that's basically what the core of Labyrinth Warriors was. They were extended domains with a greater emphasis on combat, but with strong presentation, exploration, and traversal to make the mode more engaging, entertaining, and immersive. There were even treasure chests to find and open along the way. It's a game mode that managed to tie all of Genshin's gameplay elements, team building, traversal, exploration, and combat, into one excellent little package. It was by far the single best combat event they have ever given us. And like the simulated universe, Labyrinth Warriors was tuned to be approachable for casuals and fun for hardcore players by putting a greater emphasis on powering up your teams through the available buffs. I'm really not kidding when I say this game mode was just simulated universe in Genshin Impact. There's a reason these roguelike game modes are in every other one of Hoyo's games. They're really fun and work really well. It's frankly weird that they haven't tried to bring it to Genshin as permanent content, especially because they already did the work. Labyrinth Warriors exists. It could be put back into the game right now just by tweaking the UI, changing enemy lineups, and balancing some buffs, but it could even be so much more. The domains in the event were brilliantly themed to Inazuma, but there are a lot more domain themes they've introduced since then, more than one for each region. They could likely create some sort of procedural generation system for each terrain set, match the theme of the domain to a new set of enemies you choose every week, or create multiple worlds like Star Rail has in its simulated universe. It would be a lot of fun to explore new, varied domains and face down challenging enemies every week. Hell, why not put some beefed up weekly bosses in there? They could make Ajdaha or even Storm Terror real challenging fights again. Genshin's gameplay is so much fun that there is of course all this potential to do stuff with a new endgame mode. Unfortunately, it seems like Hoyoverse has settled with Genshin's endgame as is. Despite all the blowback from when that one interview dropped, they haven't done anything. Genshin Impact is a casual game. That's how Hoyo seems to think. But I think a game mode like this, like the simulated universe, can strike the appropriate balance. Approachable for casuals, fun for hardcore. It already exists, Hoyo. Put it back in the game.